D&D Out Loud with Ben Riggs. Episode 94. Is this map of medieval Hungary a good adventure seed?
Welcome, assembled internet hordes, to D&D Out Loud with Ben Riggs. I am Ben Riggs, apparently controversial D&D historian and author of Slaying the Dragon, A Secret History of Dungeons & Dragons. And over the past 13 years of writing and podcasting, I have met hundreds of creative geniuses in and around the world of tabletop role-playing games. Here on this show, I ask two of these flaming torches of the human imagination to come on and have a fascinating discussion, which I then record and send out into the world. And today is an unusual day because I will confess, normally I encounter people's work and I'm like, oh, that looks interesting. Let's have them on the podcast. With both of you, I am aware of your work and I'm fascinated by it, but events have been such that we kind of got you on recording before I even had time to buy a copy of STAR BORG in JP's case. So with that as by way of note, an apology, I suppose, but I'm in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and if those of you following the news may know, we had storms and tornadoes and there's sewage in my basement. So that occupied some of my prep time. I'm very sorry. But let me start with Jason Lutes first, because Jason's work first came to the fore of my attention when Ben Milton over at Questing Beast talked about it. Because if I recall correctly, Infinity of Ships was one of his top 10 products of the year, but I want to say you beat Infinity of Ships. It was Infinity of Ships 10 and I think you 9 or something like that. Is that right, Jason?
I don't keep track of the rankings. I just know we were both mentioned in that podcast. Yeah.
It was significant to me simply because I loved Infinity of Ships. I was like, this is a perfect gaming book if you wanted to do.
That's an amazing book for sure.
And you beat them, I think. And again, maybe I'm wrong. Sorry, because the Infinity of Ships guys do, I think, listen. So sorry if I got that wrong, guys. But I was like, oh crap, I got to go and pick up his book. And now it is on Bundle of Holding, and I was like, it's on I'm gonna call it the wrong thing. It's on Bundle of Holding. I can get it for $7. I'd be a fool not to. And I can find him. And I got to have him on the podcast, and then events took over. But Jason, for people listening who are unaware of your work, could you tell us about, let's start with Perilous Void, since that's what's on Bundle of Holding right now.
Yeah, that's my most recent thing. I teach at a 2-year MFA program for comic books in Vermont, and I'm a cartoonist sort of by vocation and a game designer in my spare time. And the Perilous Void is kind of a sequel to the Perilous Wilds, which was a fantasy supplement for based on the Dungeon World rules, but it has lots of tables and sort of procedures for generating different aspects of world building. That kind of put me on the map as a designer, and it became a very, very popular supplement for Dungeon World and then just in general. And so for the science fiction version of that, the Perilous Void, I wanted to do something that was had no rule set attached to it, and it was just purely about system agnostic kind of galaxy generation, essentially. And then in between, I've published a number of other smaller kind of supplements. And the most recent thing I've worked on, I'm publishing this role-playing game, a standalone role-playing game called Stonetop, written by Jeremy Strandberg. And that is set to arrive at our distributor sometime in May. So that's the big kind of project that I've most recently been dedicated to.
All right. Well, I have 1,000 follow-up questions, but I must continue on my mission of introductions before I delve into any of that. Also joining us is a man whose work I have seen on the internet, and I was like, when I see it at a convention, I'm gonna pick it up. And Jason was like, if I'm gonna be on your show, I'd like to talk to these people. And I saw his name and that he was the STAR BORG guy, and I was like, the STAR BORG guy. I want to talk to him. That sounds like it'd be interesting for 60 minutes. So JP Coovert, welcome to the show. I guess, what can you tell us about STAR BORG?
Yeah, thanks for having me. STAR BORG, I co-created with my pal Kyle Latino, who has the Map Crow YouTube channel. And then we have a solo version of the game that was written by Perplexing Ruins. So STAR BORG is it's Star Wars meets MORK BORG. There are 7 zines available at this point, so it's it comes packaged as the like core rules, player facing, GM rules, and then the solo rules, and then there's a bunch of like supplementary. There's a couple of adventures, and then like extra like kind of anthology type zines that have new classes and enemies and all that fun stuff.
Well, I'm going to start with a traditional question, which is, Jason, since JP was on your list of people to talk to, why JP?
Full disclosure, JP is also a cartoonist and attended the aforementioned school where I teach. So JP is a former student of mine. And it has been amazing to watch him go on from comic book school to create just this, basically a library of amazing, super accessible role-playing game stuff. So, and I kind of wasn't really paying attention for a number of years. And then occasionally JP would pop, I'd see his name on Steam, or we'd have a little back and forth communication briefly. And then I gradually figured out through entirely different channels, like what he'd been doing all this time, which is just creating not just STAR BORG, but like this incredible, I mean, it's just like a voluminous collection of incredible, colorful, fun RPG supplement stuff. STAR BORG has rules because it's based on MORK BORG, but most of the stuff JP does, as far as I know, is like system neutral, and you can, you know, use whatever you want with it. And JP and I had the great good fortune to attend Gen Con last year together. It was my first time there, but he's an old hand because he's been enjoying so much success based on all of the work that incredible work that he's done. But we've never really talked about game design stuff. So I thought, and when you asked me who would I like to talk to, JP was on the short list.
Wow. I am fascinated. Again, it's a funny synchronicity because when I had the Infinity of Ships guys on, they're all poets. Like, you know, they obviously
that
have,
makes
like,
so much sense.
I'll send you the episode after this because, like, we get to talking and they're like, yeah, I was a poet. We were like self-publishing stuff in, I think it was Baltimore. And, you know, a successful volume of poetry will generate $10 in sales. And then they just took that creativity and fell into tabletop role-playing game design. So I'm equally fascinated by the idea that, you know, is cartoonist an accurate term in this case?
Yeah.
That our cartoonists are like, hey, role-playing games is, you know, it's a really, really I would have thought there would be you would have a better chance of making money as a cartoonist than a poet. Although I would imagine it is still a cutthroat field, you know.
I don't know if it's cutthroat. It's pretty friendly. JP and I work in like the indie comics world.
Yeah.
We're up against DC and Marvel, so it's a pretty friendly community to belong to. But you know, there's a huge overlap between cartoonists and nerddom. So I don't know what the poet world is like, but there's definitely I get students every year, at least kind of half of my incoming students play role-playing games of one kind or another. So it's as the hobby has grown over the years, it has, you know, it's kind of gotten its tendrils out into all these different areas, and the ones that tend to have a higher quotient of kind of nerd types are definitely going to, you know, you're going to find more people like that. I'd love to know what the poet scene is like as far as that goes.
I mean, I can't speak to it, but it's certainly like it was certainly very striking to have like these 3 poets all on, and I guess I'll follow that up with then random tables, because the idea of poets being able to generate amazing random tables and then walk away, I can see that, and Perilous Wilds and Perilous Void, again, I don't want to say that it's all random tables, but there's a lot of random tables in there, right?
Mostly, yeah.
Ben Milton of Questing Beast when I was talking to him about his role-playing game, Knave, he was like, the hardest part was the random tables by far. So I guess I'm going to ask you, Jason, tell me about making random tables. Is it? I would imagine it's really hard, like harder than coming up with a single world because you're coming up with a machine for making 1,000 of them.
Yeah, I don't find it so hard. I think because from the age of probably 12 or 13 years old, I encountered the old Judges Guild stuff from the 70s, which were these incredible D&D supplements that basically gave you like a huge world map and then gave you books full of these tables, these crazy tables that you could generate all kinds of stuff with. And so that kind of, I think, I incorporated that into my kind of creative toolkit from a very young age. So I grew up thinking about that stuff and how to create tables that would generate, you want to generate, like, that's one of the reasons these poets are probably very good at it. You want to generate suggestive content that doesn't nail everything down too tightly and where there's room for association between, to find connections between things and then create that, the emergent, allow the kind of, allow the brain of the GM to, and the players to interpret that stuff in a kind of, and allow the story to emerge from it. So I've always been fascinated with it. I really hate random generation that's truly random. I really, like back in the day, I used to play Diablo a lot. It was touted for its procedurally generated levels, and they all sort of just feel the same. I'm like, what's the point of random generation if it all just kind of ends up in a kind of soup? So I've always been really interested in creating tables that'll generate stuff that'll build and create these little maybe randomly generated pathways that take you to someplace you never would have expected to go. And so that's one of the big motivators. And of course, you create tables for different aspects, and they have very specialized kind of functions. But in general, that's what I would say is the creating stuff that is suggestive and in combination will give you something unexpected, right? And then that's what makes it kind of come alive in play. So for me, I wouldn't say it's hard. I'd say that when I work really hard, sometimes there are types of tables that are harder than others, and I'm not good at the math part. I design really just going from kind of straight impulse and then iterating and refining until it gets towards the feeling that I want. So the actual generation, the creation of what the kind of population of those tables is not particularly hard for me, but then I have to assess it and figure out what's the balance here. Am I covering all the themes? Am I hitting on all the potential avenues that I would want somebody to be able to access if they're going into the wilderness or going into a dungeon or whatever? And I really, really enjoy it. So that's what kind of compels me to keep going back to it.
Wow. Well, JP, let me selfishly ask you one question, and then I have a conversation started that's become a bit of a tradition, and I'll throw that at the two of you and lay back a little bit. But tell me everything you can about STAR BORG, because I am a shall we say loose for Star Wars and Star Wars inspired role playing games.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm always looking for a better way to have that experience at the table. So far, my favorite has probably been the West End Games version. I don't know if you're old enough for that, but
yeah.
So tell me about STAR BORG, because I like MORK BORG.
Yeah. So I was a little kid on my. I think I had like a hand-me-down rocking horse or something, which is kind of like really sort of old sounding toy, but I had this like wooden rocking horse. I used to like pretend that I was on the speeder, flying around the woods of Endor as a little kid. So it like all three of us, it has a place in Star Wars. Has this kind of like ever present place in my brain, in my heart, and so I like making games and I like playing games where, it's part of the reason I love fantasy is where you don't have to spend a lot of time at the table making sure everybody's on the same page. So everybody's seen Star Wars. It makes it like just a really easy world to like jump into and have some adventuring happening. And I was thinking about making a Star Wars game, and MORK BORG just made sense. I mean, you know, I guess there is like a power fantasy in Star Wars, but I sort of think of it more as a you know, the rebels fighting against this overwhelming universe spanning authority, and so that felt appropriate for MORK BORG. Like Star Wars is kind of apocalypse. It's on the edge of the apocalypse, and there's just these ragtag people fighting against the Empire, and so it just made sense in my head. And then I was talking to my pal Kyle about it. He got excited because he loves Star Wars, and then we just started making the game. It's really, because it's MORK BORG, it has such a wonderful license, because I love Star Wars so much. It's like easy to like make stuff inspired by that. And yeah, it's just, I think it's fun to play, and it's really fun to make stuff for. So.
Is the best way to buy it through your website?
Physical versions, yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And the physical versions are absolutely worth having. They're just so they're beautifully produced, and like I can't remember if Star Wars black and white or full color on the inside.
It's color, yeah.
Color on the inside.
Yeah.
And your sensibility, one of the things I really appreciate about it, is that, like what you just said, like you grew up with that stuff and you filtered it through your own kind of aesthetic sense.
Yeah.
And that excitement and that energy, the enthusiasm you have for the content absolutely comes through. I mean, a lot of your stuff, it just brims over with this kind of excitement. And I get the impression, because there's so much of it, that you're like, you just produce it in this like burst of enthusiasm, right? Like Star Wars certainly has that quality. Like, here's something made by a guy who just loves what it's about. And that, but it's not like a messy kind of, you know, explosion of stuff. It's like all very well organized and cleanly laid out and super accessible. I mean, that's one of the main things I really love about your stuff, is like how inviting it is. Like the covers draw people in. The drawings are very cartoony, and it's definitely in a lot of ways it's like opposite of MORK BORG that way, right? Like death metal and and I love that, the marriage of those two things of the MORK BORG ideas, the underlying ideas, and then the JP Coovert kind of sensibility, being able to do something totally different with them.
I mean, that's the other part of it is, well, thank you, by the way, that was very, very nice. The other part is taking the MORK BORG kind of layout craziness, and you know, I'm making zines, so the production isn't as awesome, and I was about to say nerdy, and I think it's fair to say nerdy production things that are with MORK BORG and Cyborg, but like having those things in the back of my head and kind of mixing my taste for things that are maybe a little more simple, but kind of putting that spin on it too is a fun challenge.
That's something I was really curious about, is how in all of your stuff, how you think about the actual design, page layout, the information design of your stuff, right? It's one thing to like write a densely worded D&D module or whatever, and it's another thing to take the information that you want to communicate and figure out, you know, what a page spread is going to look like, how you're going to visually, and a lot of times the layout shifts according to the content of whatever it is you're depicting. Where I was like, you know, it's like the job board in the middle of the town where people are looking for work, and it's a page with all the kind of jobs listed there. And I'm just wondering how you approach that, because there's game design, right, which we can think of as like a set of rules that we write out. And then there's book design, which is how information is displayed and made available to the reader. But in your work, those things are really well. They fit together really, really well. It's like it's like the industrial design thing of form and function, right? The form and the function are serving each other super well. And I'm just wondering how you arrived at that approach, because there's not. I mean, I guess we see more and more stuff like that, but I'm curious about your influences as far as that goes.
Okay. I'm actually going to spin it back on you because so I don't know what year it was, a while ago, a long time ago. I was like running.
JP, you can't be more than 25.
Dude, look at the gray, man. Are you kidding me? I was running it was when the 5e starter set came out, and I promise this is gonna get back to your question. The 5e starter, like the first starter, the Fandelver, whatever, Fandelver or something.
Yeah. The Lost Minds of Fandelver.
Lost Minds of Fandelver, yeah. That came out. I was running that for my friends, and the premise is like, oh, this is like your classic, first thing you do is run into goblins on the road, and then you go into town and rest, and then you go into a dungeon, and it's like classic D&D, right? And I ran that, had fun, and then I got this little zine called Servants of the Cinder Queen. And it was just like so this Jason wrote this, if that isn't clear. And this was just like, oh wait, no, this is the perfect starter adventure. Like this is how, not just the contents of the adventure, but how it's presented, how easy it is to just have, it's how many pages is it? Like probably not even 30. Yeah, it's like 24 pages. And I feel like it's like maybe almost as much as the whole like starter set, worth of stuff in here. Like just everything about this, the form factor of the zine, the presentation, the illustration, Kenny's illustrations, it was just like, this is what I want. And so, like when it came time for me to make my first zine, I was like, okay, this at this size, that's just like a digest size, 8.5 by 11 fold in half. The two columns of text like actually works and isn't like this overwhelming, at least for me, overwhelming when you get into the bigger, 8.5 by 11 size books. And then, the kind of like OSR-ness of the like heading, description, bullet points, just all of the, and I mean, I guess this is more, was this for Dungeon World?
Yeah. Dungeon World, and that was before I really got into the OSR design stuff, and so I was looking more at Dungeon World stuff. Yeah,
but it feels very same. So I mean, I think like there's a clarity to what you do that and more than just the layout sense, but I mean, honestly, this was like one of the first things I saw that like really informed how to tackle, because like, we at school we learned layout stuff, but it's all for comics, so it's like, you hit Control D and place your comics page in the like maybe we like did some page numbers at the bottom or something, but I still feel like I don't really know what I'm doing in terms of getting the right like design, like graphic design kind of stuff. So that's all an experiment, and it is just like taking like something like Servants of the Cinder Queen, and like looking at how someone else does it, or even with STAR BORG, like using MORK BORG as like an insane example of what works as a, because there's some page spreads in MORK BORG that are just like the coolest ways of showing it's like the one that's popping in my head is like the weapons pages. It's just a random table, but it's like a medical diagram, medical illustration kind of like a dead person with a bunch of weapons sticking into them.
Oh yeah, that's based on an actual old woodcut from gosh, I can't remember what century it's from, but there's an old woodcut that's almost like that they
even better. Yeah. And it's just the random table. And then I think on the next page, like the D12, like the 12 in the random table has its own page. It's like insane. And it's just a femur. It's like so cool. So I don't know. It's just nerding out about that stuff and seeing things that are cool and inspiring, and then like trying to like figure out how to make InDesign.
Can I interrupt the flow to ask?
Yeah.
So Jason, since he has now praised Servants of the Cinder Queen to the rafters, can you tell us about Servants of the Cinder Queen?
I just gotta say, Ben, for you and your listeners, like it wasn't a setup. I didn't know that JP was gonna turn that back on me like that.
This is what people are here for.
Yeah. This was, so when was it? I want to say 2012 for some reason. That's what pops in my head. The 1-2-3 punch of Dungeon World, Jason Morningstar's Fiasco, and the DCC RPG. I kind of encountered all at once, and I played all three of them. And up until that point, I had been most recently running a Pathfinder, like a 3.5 campaign, which was driving me crazy because of all the rules and how everything had a rule. And if you knew that if you couldn't put your finger on the rule was still out there somewhere. And so it made this very like uneasy feeling of running that game, because so much of it felt like it was outside of me, like that I had to refer to something else. And Fiasco and DCC and Dungeon World come from this place of there's a fruitful void. There's a lot of room for you to like close the gaps and make your call as the GM or judge. Dungeon World, of course, coming from Apocalypse World, so I went back and learned all about the PBTA stuff, which became my thing. Like all the games I design now come out of the PBTA space. But Servants of the Cinder Queen, I read all that stuff and I was so kind of excited that it all just kind of like boom, kind of came to me all at once. And over the course of like 3 or 4 days, I just like, that's all I did for 3 or 4 days. Just kind of like poured myself into it. And I had in my head, this is the way it's going to be laid out. And it's going to be organized this way. And I got to like pare it down and pare it down and pare it down. So it's just enough words to kind of set the scene. And then and that's a module. One of the things I did, which was kind of unusual, was there's no map in it. It just describes the location. There's a cutaway view of the mountain.
Okay,
there's no like top-down classic dungeon map. So
but how the rooms connect isn't.
Right. Like each page is a different room, or maybe a half page sometimes, and they're numbered, and it basically tells you what it connects to, but how it connects and where is totally up to the GM to make the decision on. So it's a fairly, it's kind of, each room is kind of floating in this design space that you end up deciding how they connect. So you can run it. You can run it over 3 to 5 sessions, or you can run it as a one-shot because they can leave one room and arrive at the final kind of showdown spot. So all that kind of came to me at once, and I just like, bleh, I just kind of poured it out. And another former student of mine, Kenny Wajaja, this really, really great illustrator, I hired him to do the drawings for it and then put it out, did it on Kickstarter, and I think it had a pretty small, maybe 500 print run. It's available in PDF, but currently. But that was my first kind of volley that I fired into the RPG design space.
It's so good.
I mean, it looks gorgeous. I'll definitely put a link in the show notes here. Let me just write that down.
Did you play test? Like, what did you do to play test this?
I wrote the whole thing. So a lot of times what I'll do is because the page design is so vital to my understanding of my conception of the thing, I won't write a Word document or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just design the whole thing. And in that case, it was a zine. So then I could print it out and staple it. And then I would take it to game night and I would run it. So it was all designed, and I would run it. And then
Yeah.
because it was like each room was a page, I could easily edit and move stuff around and whatnot. But I think I only play tested it like 5 or 6 times before I felt like it was ready to go. One of the great virtues of the PBTA system is that it's fairly you don't have to worry about level balance. You don't have to worry about encounter design, because like the system itself is kind of what's the word I'm looking for? It's like fuzzy enough to accommodate a wide range of kind of power levels.
Very cool.
Let me ask you the classic question that I'll ask a pair of people. If I was independently wealthy and I said, hey, I have some money to that I'd like to spend on a creative tabletop role-playing game project, and I would like you two to be in charge of it, what would the two of you design?
Together,
yeah.
Ooh.
I would suggest, so JP, what do you think about like a kind of point crawl, like a kind of picture like a web, like a network web, like a point-to-point thing, right? So it's not like a hex map. And each of the nodes is like a, obviously like a location that you would key out, right, with stuff going on in it, whatever. So that's my first pitch. The overarching thing would be the world would be like a point-by-point kind of design that you could move between. And so each of those individual nodes would be its own little location where maybe it's a dungeon, maybe it's a wilderness space or whatever. What kind of a setting would you want to plug in there?
Man, I'm trying to think of what.
Why is this guy, man? This guy's got like $1 billion he's going to throw out this project. So
yeah, I feel like we've like talked about some kind of video game or something in the past that we might overlap heavy on. It's funny. It's funny that you said like not a hex crawl, because like all the games I see you playing on Steam are like the 4X like the hex crawl, like those kind of games.
I love hex crawls. I think that I started to play around with this idea of looking at medieval Hungary. I was looking at a map of medieval Hungary and breaking it up into a point crawl instead of a hex crawl. So you go from location to location. And I like that. But I mean, it has its advantages versus a hex crawl, which is like, hex crawls are weird because even though it's like, as you explore, you're going into this new area, but like if it's a 6 mile by 6 mile hex, like you're not covering all the ground in there, but maybe there's one thing that's supposed to be there. I don't know. And I try to address that in my own game that's more about that. So I think the point-to-point thing started to appeal to me because it's like you can have, specific kind of in-depth locations at each spot, and you don't have to worry about all the in-between stuff so much. Although I love overland exploration. It's like a passion of mine too.
Yeah. I'm for a point crawl. Like just skip past, like keep it moving, right? Skip past the in between, or maybe there's an encounter table or something that happens on some of the in between, like you're going down a dangerous road. Yeah.
And then what if each location is its own zine?
Yeah.
Right? So each location on the map is its own 24 to 48 page zine. So, and if it's a big enough map, I mean, maybe we would invite in collaborators and say like, okay, this region is yours. Yeah. You write these 10 zines. You write these 10 zines. And then people who want to play in this world, they wouldn't have to buy all of them. They could just buy, I want an adventure that happens around this inland sea where there's all these cool noble houses and whatnot. So I'm going to buy these 8 zines, and that'll be my campaign setting, right? And then we lay them out exactly like your books. So you'd be in charge of graphic design, right? So we have these amazing illustrated page spreads with totally digestible chunks of information. Covering each one of these things, and then because I think one of the things that always kind of flummoxes me when I'm facing like a campaign setting is this big overall kind of lore dump, right? Like, okay, I got to engage with whatever. What's the world that Pathfinder set in?
Galarian.
Yeah. Okay. Like, I got to read all that stuff. I ran like a adventure path or whatever it's called, the Kingmaker one. It's like, okay, I got to understand all this stuff. And, but I'm interested in the idea of giving people just enough information where they can, it's like putting down the tent poles, but they're the ones who are going to hang the tent on it, right? Like just enough information to get them going. And then if they explore this point crawl of 8 zines, as they're going and reading the work that comprises the world that they're exploring, they get to like add to it, and and I think I would want that built into the design to like encourage, have sets of questions and stuff to ask them to like collaborate with the designers essentially to help create it that way.
If we're talking about spending millions of dollars, I love the idea of having it be like some kind of big collaborative, so you could like get a bunch of people in on it and
I mean,
the money around.
Let's make it a whole planet, right? Like let's do a whole planet.
A whole planet. That sounds awesome. I like, dude. Yeah, I would do the layout if you would do some of the drawings, because that is something that we are missing in all of your.
Yeah, I don't do any of the drawings for my.
Yeah, which is a crime.
Why don't you do your own drawings?
I like hiring artists and paying them money, because artists don't get paid enough money.
I mean, fair, but like if someone wanted to see your art, where could they look?
I wrote and drew a graphic novel called Berlin, which is available still in most bookstores and libraries. And it's my drawing style in that is fairly dry and documentary, and so it's pretty straightforward. I mean, I've done fantasy illustrations. I'm always just unhappy with them, and I love other people's work, so I'm always, trying to hire other people to do stuff. I'm not like I'm not saying I suck as an artist. It's just like it's so much more fun to say, "Hey, draw me a dragon destroying a town," and then I get this thing in the mail, and it's like I didn't, you know what I mean? It's like a gift. It's like something I didn't expect and I'm totally surprised by.
Yeah,
and it's super fun. That whole process is super fun.
I creatively I get that, but also as someone who's a fan of your. So okay, so I was it a play test for Freebooters on the Frontier? I think that's what we so Jason ran a play test for one of his games. It was me and a bunch of other former students, and we like generated the world, and we kind of like I think it was like kind of some sort of whiteboard program that we like sort of sketched out all the different areas, but we eventually got it down to this like really cool concept for a starting town that was like it was like a island, but it was like this big rock, and like the town was kind of at the top, and you had to like boats could come up, but you had to like or maybe there was even like a kind of skinny land bridge or something, but boats could kind of like come up, but then you'd have to like go up all these stairs to get to the town at the top, and we had like some history to it and stuff. And I just remember, I mean, this was probably like a decade ago at this point, but I remember like jumping on the Zoom call or whatever we were using, and you like screen shared your illustration of this like starting town, and it was like I think it was just pencil, but you like you like thresholded it out like black and made it so it looked like a black and white like line. It was like the cleanest, like most amazing like fully realized, should have been a 2-page spread in a book illustration for this like play test that like we it's like the players generated the thing, so this was not for
a product.
It wasn't going to be, and it was just for us. It was for us, and it was like the coolest drawing ever. And so I just tangent, but I just would love to see
the maps. I'm happy with. I would totally include maps that I drew.
Yeah,
that I made.
yeah. So you have to draw some planet maps. for this project.
Yeah, I think I'd probably draw that. I feel good about, and I get satisfaction from drawing cities and towns. So that would definitely be something.
Yeah.
Too.
Man, I have 1,000 follow-up questions.
We got 13 minutes, Ben.
I know. I guess I have to start with you casually threw out that your point and crawl would be inspired by medieval Hungary. And so I got to ask, why medieval Hungary?
I was looking at old maps. I'm always online, like looking at old, real maps from the past and how people visualized territory. And there's just like, a lot of incredible stuff out there. And I found this old map of Hungary that was like super, it was, trying to convey, and you just put yourself in the mindset of somebody living at that time. The map maker who's told by other people how this stuff all relates to, it's right, here's the mountain range and here's the big city and there's this town here and whatnot. And I was just really interested, and he had because he had to draw certain things at a certain scale to show that this is a town, and it was pretty illustrative. It wasn't like a little dot for a town, it'd be like a little tiny drawing of a town, right? Very much like the fantasy maps that we see a lot of today. And it was contained, it was just contained on this one page. And there were roads between all the towns, and I was just like, "Wow, that's not even knowing anything about the history." I could just imagine that being a kind of campaign setting very easily, and started to develop it along those lines, like redrawing the map so that it was these connecting, these points connected, and coming up with a system about I wanted it to be a campaign where there's like a growing and spreading corruption that the players have to locate and then try to destroy. So there'd be sort of like a strategic game happening at the top level, and then the role-playing game happening within that. Like in between sessions, the GM would decide where the corruption spreads, and the players would have to respond to that kind of thing. So it all came out of that. And I did look into Hungary, like history of that region, to try to get some inspiration for different cultures and stuff. But that was kind of where it came from.
Wow.
Sounds rad, man.
It does. My next question will be truly obnoxious. I'm doing pre-war Germany with my 12 to 14-year-olds. Is Berlin 12 to 14-year-old appropriate, or is it a little too cabaret?
There is a little cabaret stuff in it. There's a little, yeah. In fact, there is a scene that's
pretty R-rated.
Yeah. It's definitely an R-rated book. It's not in your face R-rated, but it is.
Yeah,
it's a very adult themed book. It's about the rise of fascism, and I would say I do pull punches. Like, it's not like, pushing your face into the horrors of that stuff, but it does try to like address the reality, the good and the bad, all together. So, but it all depends on. People do teach it in high school, but
7th and 8th grade is a little. It's a really weird, uncomfortable time.
That would be weird. Yeah.
Like, I tried to. Again, I have a literary agent, and I was like, I'd like to write a young adult novel about 13-year-olds, and she's like, don't do it. You can't. No one wants to read a book about a 13-year-old, not even 13-year-olds, because again, they're
what?
Well, again, they're becoming adults, but they're still definitely kids.
Yeah.
And
I see. Right.
The things they get up to when adults are not around are not pretty, and we don't want to know about them, actually.
Yeah.
Because again, it's the creepy thing. Do you really want to know what the 7th graders are saying to their AI girlfriends? You do not. I don't want to know either. I found out once, and I wish I didn't know.
Man.
And again, if it's 8-year-olds, you're like, okay, well, at least they're an adult in some way. 17, they're almost an adult. But again, when you get that 12, 13 part, and you're like, oh, you're really still a kid, and yuck. But hormones. Anyway, 7th and 8th grade has a 90% washout rate for teachers after 5 years, and I'm in year 15.
Whoa!
I just watch people go through puberty again and again and again and again.
So the gray in your beard is not from age.
It's stress. And so this is unrelated, but I'll just ask, because I got super into Love and Rockets in the past 12 months. Either of you into Love and Rockets?
12 months? Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, huge. I mean,
Jason shares a publisher with Oh no, they're
I worked for
Fantagraphic.
Fantagraphics
Yeah,
once
yeah,
upon
yeah.
a time. I
Yeah,
worked
yeah,
for Fantagraphics for a year. But yeah, Love and Rockets is just like a immeasurably important and influential, aspect of independent comics in America and the world. I mean, their influence is international. Yeah, it's a really, really awesome, incredible, and so unique. What those two guys did, and especially Jaime and his art and his writing developed over the years and stuff, just became incredible cartoonist.
And again, I'd heard that in the past, and I think, I hear that, and I think to myself, oh, so in some ways this will be like reading Mouse, like it's going to be, taking my cartoon vitamins and it's going to be making me better in some way.
Yeah, right.
And it's not like it kept me away from it or anything, but it wasn't until I was in a local independent graphic novel store here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and they were like, Love and Rockets, we have a reading group, and I'm like, okay, where do I start? And they handed me Heartbreak Soup. And I read the first part of Heartbreak Soup, and I'm like, this is incredible. And it wasn't my vitamins. It was, this page turning story, ironically about 13-year-olds and sex.
That's awesome.
Yeah, when now that I have two cartoonists on, I'm like, oh, I'll mention the cartoony passion that I've discovered late in life.
That's fantastic.
All right. Well, I'm very excited about your worldwide point crawl with a zine for every point. But I guess since we're getting close to outro, I will start with JP and say everything is available on your website. I will go and buy STAR BORG I'll contact my friendly local gaming store, and if that doesn't work out, I'll buy it through your website. But other than STAR BORG, what else would you put forth before the public? Because when I glanced at your website just now, I was like, holy crap, this all looks incredible.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, so I have a Patreon where I make a monthly TTRPG zine. So sometimes it's a game like STAR BORG. Sometimes it's like this month I'm working on just a bunch of magic items, like magic weapons specifically. So there'll be like I kind of, there's like 4 different shops that are all themed and but it's really just a collection of magic items. Sometimes I do like drawing guides, so like how to draw world maps or dungeon maps or characters, all kinds of different stuff.
That's the thing about accessibility with JP and his stuff, is actually teaching people how to make stuff. It's not just here's a thing for you to run. Like a lot of it is how to draw a fantasy map books. It's like a step-by-step guide for somebody who doesn't quote unquote know how to draw, to like help them learn how to do that stuff. It's like one of the great virtues of his work. And this is just an example of one aspect of his Dragontown box set that came out. He's got a whole deck of magic, unique magic items that come with the game.
Sorry, can you say the name of the game one more time?
He's got a box set called Dragontown and the Darkness Below.
Ooh.
With it's a collection of a lot of stuff that was previously published, right, JP?
Yeah, so this actually the adventure that I wrote that was very inspired by Servants of the Cinder Queen was Dragontown, as like my starting, like what's my idea of like the coolest town that you can start an adventure on, and then it expands from there, and there's all kinds of crazy stuff happening under the town. So the book collects that. It's like a whole 12 chapter, I guess, campaign setting. And then there's the special edition box set that has all the fun stuff that you need to run it at a table, maps and the magic item cards and dice and all that stuff. It's a system neutral adventure though, so
cool.
Not a game. Yeah.
And I will ask Jason again. We've mentioned Berlin. We've obviously mentioned the bundle of holding you have going. Oh, what exactly is in the bundle of holding? Obviously Perilous Void, but what else is in the bundle of holding?
It's Perilous Void, and then a standalone RPG called Holdfast Station, which is a science fiction. Everybody's on a mining colony in space. It is highly collaborative. You make up aspects of the setting as you go, and and it's built to be a one shot, or maybe a 3-shot. You can do a 3-shot if you want, but it's built to be like a self-contained, dramatic and entertaining, following the exploits of this community of space miners as they face various kind of challenges.
So after they go and purchase your work on Bundle of Holding, what would be the next thing you would point them to? I'm going to buy Berlin. I'm not going to lie.
An inadvertent plug for my graphic novel. The next big thing is Stone Top, which is coming out in May, and Plus One XP is our distributor. So the Plus One XP website is the place to pre-order that. And then all of my stuff is on DriveThruRPG. And my publisher name is Lamp Black and Brimstone, and if you just look that up on DriveThruRPG, you'll find all the stuff that I've done so far.
Wow. Any last questions for each other? Anything else anybody wants to say?
You going to Gen Con this year, JP?
I'll be there, man.
I want to see if I can swing it.
Yes.
Yeah, you going to Gen Con? You're not too far away from Gen Con.
This will be the first Gen Con I've missed in...
Oh, no.
I don't know how long. Like, man, I'm going to say 2009, 2010 or something like that.
Oh my gosh.
This will be the first one I've missed since then. So, but yeah, I was like, I've got a book due in November. And if I go to Gen Con, I'm like, okay, I'm going to do 3 to 4 hours probably of seminars. And I always try and do something different. Like it's not like I go and I'm like, here's the history of TSR again and again and again.
Mm-hmm.
And if I do that, it'll be like, because I'm writing a book on the history of TSR, and it'll be a revised version every year, so you have a reason to go. But like just I probably spend 2 or 3 weeks writing those.
Wow.
And I'm like, with a book coming out in November, I just don't feel like I have the ability to do that this year. So
we'll see at the next one when you're promoting the book.
You're promoting the book.
Yeah.
God, I hope it's that speedy.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
It's funny. Last time my book was due in, I think it was March. My book was due March 1st, 2021. I don't think my editor did not talk to me about it until May of 2021. And then I don't think he was satisfied with a text until September of 2021. And then it came out in July of 2022.
Wow.
So I will say that like I really like my editor. He's vigorous and honest and has a great eye. So it's a lot of writing. And again, I think it paid off in my book. So I'm happy about that. But now you got me rambling off. Sorry. You guys have a great time at Gen Con.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think that's a really good reason to not go. I think that's really smart to buckle down and really push to meet that deadline. That's really, really smart. So we will roll a D20 for you.
I'll pour one out for you, my homies. All right. Well, this was great, guys. You have a tremendous Thursday night.
You too.
Yeah. Thanks so much.
Good to see you, JP.
Yeah, you too.